Hello, everybody. It is uh, June 17th, 2024, at 6:59 p.m. We started. Listen, it's 7 now. And you're watching the DOVECOTE episode 33, 31, 31. I don't know why I had 33 written there. I just changed that. 31 with Aaron King. Hello. Say hi and introduce yourself, Aaron.
Hi, I am Aaron King. I am mostly a game designer, I guess. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA.
Yeah. I think folks, long term, long time Darling Demon Eclipse viewers might be familiar with Aaron's work from Patchwork World, which we played on the channel a couple years ago, I think, like 2 years ago maybe, for It's Up to Your Early Files. But Aaron is also has made a lot of other great games and is one of the co-hosts of Read the Fucking Manual, RTFM, and yeah, does other cool stuff. Let me get your itch because I think I should direct people to that.
Oh, yeah, rtfmcast.com is the
Ooh, yeah.
podcast episode. Or yeah, there we go. Thank you,
Yeah,
and
get
thank
on
you for
that.
having me here. That actual play of Patchwork World was super fun to watch.
Hell yeah, I'm glad. I kind of worried. It's an interesting like uh I think I came at RPGs in a very different way when I was making It's Up to You, really, where it was more about like I have a world that I want to like meld this game to, and I think I would do it a different way if I were to do it again. I think.
No, I liked the world that you fit it to.
Well, I'm
I
glad.
don't know. I think I don't think a lot of people have played that game. Let me start saying that.
That's fair.
I think a lot of people see it as like a goofy game, um, which is fine. Please play it goofy if you want to. But to me, there's a seriousness in it, and I thought the world you brought to it was also serious in an interesting way. So I
Well, thank
enjoyed it.
you. Yeah, something that I really liked about it, and I think that I I think appreciate about your what work I've read of yours broadly is like I think I think that like Gonzo mix of like seriousness and like pulpy strangeness is really fun. And also I think the statless stuff in Patchwork World was especially compelling. Um,
And that's all from Pasión de las Pasiones by Brandon
mm,
Leon Gambetta, who I like owe my eternal thanks to. He, as far as I know, pioneered that. You are rolling with questions asked instead of adding a stat. So
it's a really great structure
it's really good. Yeah.
for a game for moves. Like it's something that I've only bringing the first bird in Trero, the interview bird. Um, uh, to be clear to people at home, it's not just in Trero. Like I didn't just use a Spanish word. It's intra. It's hang on. It's spelled like this. It's like in. Actually, isn't it Portuguese? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember the etymology of what I did there. Anyways,
But it's in the air.
it's in the air. It's an aerial. It's an aerial interview creature. Uh, but yeah, I really like that. That structure for moves. And it's something that I really like. And then RTFM, like I'm kind of an on and off listener, but I feel like whenever I give it a listen, I really appreciate I really appreciate what you two do in terms of just like unearthing, I think, and like
Thank
having
you.
takes on things that have been like kind of not in the zeitgeist for a very long time.
Yeah,
I think it's
we so
cool.
Max and I started the podcast. So we've never met in person. Max lives in Toronto, but we met during the height of lockdown online playing games and stuff, and just wanted to keep hanging out. and wanted an excuse to read all these RPG books that we got and haven't read. And so we started this podcast. We cover one book an episode, one game, and just try to, fully go through it and excavate it if it's an older one. Yeah, it's been really fun. I think we have like 60 some episodes now, and the nice part about it being one game per episode is that people can just dip in. There's no continuity, there's no deep lore. If you see one that is about a game you like, you can listen, and if something bores you, skip it. Go. There are so many other podcasts out there to listen to as well.
Yeah. Oh, you've been doing some really good ones recently. These
We
are
are doing
some, yeah.
we are doing a bunch of horny and or sex games this quote unquote season. We change the season every half year. And so Max was like, let's just go all in on these horny sex games. And that's what we've been doing.
Quick, I need to release Sapphic World now. No.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're standing by to read it.
Yeah. I need to how have I not noticed that this is what y'all have been doing? You did Vice and Violence. That's
Yeah, Vice and
so
Violence is so good.
yeah. I've been talking to
Uh,
my partner Wendy about this. Rapscallion is a big like is a big goal. Like I really want to get Rapscallion on the show. I think it'd be really cool.
yeah, Vice and Violence, for people that don't know, is I mean, at its root, like a sort of traditional fantasy role-playing game, just as far as like you have some stats and you're rolling and you belong to some classes and there are races. But it's by this really talented erotic artist. And so there's also different rules for different sex stuff, but not in a bad way, like all in a
Mhm.
really kind of fun, gleeful way. And yeah, the quality of the game, both the rules and the art, is like so high. So it's such a good game. I think if anyone wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, they could just play Vice and Violence, but on the low horniness level. There's like an included, I forget what it's called, but like a lewdness level. So you
Yeah.
can play it with no sex. You will still be seeing all these horny pictures in the book, but yeah, it's a super fun game. You level up in classes by doing downtime activities. So if you want to become a better fighter, you spend your downtime like in the gladiator pits, and you learn different dirty tricks for fighting and stuff, and then you can switch and go make a deal to learn some blood magic instead. Just like really fun stuff that has been, taking stuff from like Blades in the Dark as far as downtime actions and gating class abilities behind narrative structure it's really cool. It's
Yeah.
free as well. Yeah.
I uh I I haven't read the recent version of it, and I'm meaning to. I remember I had some like friction with earlier versions of it, but it sounds like a lot of the stuff that I was worried about has been um, kind of broken down. Um, should I bring this thing up? Yeah, okay. So I made an image a while back, and I want your opinion on it. You
Okay.
might not know about some of these games 'cause a lot of them are like things that my friends have made or like peers have made. Um, but So this is the bimbo points versus curse stick Venn diagram chart. Um, so you have and the fundamentals are bimbo points are dense, adventurous, horny about freakshires of sex, and curse stick are sparse, weird and lyrical (parentheses sad) and horny about humans of sex. Um, and I want to know how do you think I'm right? Do you think
I
this is
mean, this
true?
is great. I haven't read a lot of these. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of a big part of what we've ended up talking about is like, when is sex fun? When is sex strange or scary, like in games? And so I like this approach to breaking that down. Um, the first book we read for the season is called Anal Wizards, and it's almost
Uh-huh.
like a choose your own adventure comic book, but with dice rolls and stuff in it. Um, and there's lots of nudity, there's lots of body parts, but there's almost no horniness.
Right.
Like, the body is there as a site of humor and horror, not as anything to kind of be attracted to, which is such an interesting comparison to Vice and Violence, where the body is there for just fun all the time, like revel in it, have fun with it, make jokes about it. Um, so yeah, I would be curious where you would put Anal Wizards. Maybe it exists outside the.
Yeah, I feel like there's a Z-axis to this. And we'd have to, I don't know, I'd have to
Yes,
figure out where that is.
our research will continue.
Yeah, there. I think there is like a horror and there's like an axis of lust versus horror. Um,
Yes, it's good.
and sometimes and maybe another axis of like amplitude. I don't know.
Oh, right, right. Subtle sex versus whatever Vice and Violence is.
Yeah,
The
this might need to be
opposite
a
of
grid.
subtle.
Yeah, this might need to be 3D space, an axis with one end. Yeah, political compass exactly. Um, yeah, these look great. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to these once I'm not on air, because holy shit. Um, yeah. Uh, 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 Besides or including things that you're reading for, yeah, let's say any games. Are there any games that you are reading or playing at the moment that you'd like to talk about? Anything that you think is like cool that you'd like to point folks towards?
The last game I ran and have been running for a long time now, I run a game for two players, two old friends of mine, and we it's really cool to do two-player games, I think, or whatever you'd call it, two-player, one GM.
Mhm.
And so we have been playing Sagas of the Icelanders, which is one of my all-time favorites. It's one of the first generation of Powered by the Apocalypse games. It's a realistic game about being a person in Iceland when it's being settled, like in the 10th century. Yeah, by Gregor Vuga. We are not playing it in Iceland. We're doing. We just didn't want to deal with actual real history.
Yeah.
But it's a game that's explicitly gendered. The two basic playbooks are man and woman, and there
Oh.
are moves that only men can do and moves that only women can do, but then there are all these ways to like subvert and mess with those distinctions. So it's not the game telling you these are the two genders. It's the game saying this is what society projects and expects of people, and then gives you tools to either follow those roles or subvert them. Um, yeah, it's really cool. It does some fun stuff in the PBTA space that I don't know could stand to be brought back into mainstream PBTA design.
Yeah, I that's kind of my question about it. Like, is there a like to what degree are you like looking at it and being like, oh, that is the thing that has not been canonized like in PBTA design?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's very little like fighting. Um, there's like even Monster Hearts, which is an amazing game, does have these elements of like lash out and stuff like that. Uh, that is very rare in Sagas of the Icelanders, and is likely to result in you dying. Like there's almost this OSR element of it, and like just the idea of trying to reflect a society's expectations in the playbook, I think is really neat, and then giving you ways to mess with that. Um, yeah, it's really fun. The leveling system, you have to use moves on people you have relationships with to level up, which is cool. Yeah, just a neat game.
That rules.
Layout is a little old school, so be prepared for that. If you go to read it, it could stand. I would happily buy a second revised edition. So
Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes a game will be a little fugly. um,
I am bad at layout, so all of my games could also stand to be reissued, but
I'm
I don't
similar,
have time for
so
that. I'm making new games instead.
that's the vibe. Are there any other games that you're playing or reading that you want to point folks towards?
Um, it's so like I have your notes here for the episode, and there's like
Yeah.
the current events, news stuff, and I feel really disconnected from like RPG
It's
industry
okay.
current events for a variety of reasons. I'm sure we'll get into it. A lot of reading for the podcast is older stuff. And I also work at a game store, and we have used RPGs there, and I get a discount. Um, and so I get a lot of like cheap garbage from the 90s or whatever, just because it's ends up being $3, and I am curious about it. So I have Teenagers from Outer Space that I'm reading right now, which is an early game from R. Talsorian and Mike Pondsmith, who's probably most well known for Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk Red.
Oh yeah,
Um, One of the first major black designers in the RPG space, which is cool.
yeah,
Um, and it's funny to me that Cyberpunk is the one that is most well known by him. Uh, because he did one called Cyber Generation that's like, oh, all the cyberpunks have grown up, gotten jobs, and had kids, and you're those kids now, and you're rebelling against your parents, the old
oh,
punks who have sold out. And it's like a really fun game um, that keeps saying like, this is about kids. Like, it's not about pulling guns on people and murdering people. It's about like kids rebelling in the structure that society gives them. And then Teenagers from Outer Space is like a teen humor thing where aliens come to Earth and their kids are enrolled in high school, and it's just about like doing pranks and like hooking up and stuff. Uh, so like stuff that I think would do really well in the modern indie market, but just came out in the time of D&D and White Wolf and stuff, and just kind of are remembered as oddities instead of something that's tapping into what a lot of game designers are doing right now. So
yeah. I think that there's a lot of value in like being focused on like not being focused on things that are happening, right? Because I think that that stuff can be kind of blinding. Um, I
yeah, I'm also
yeah.
just a lifelong depressive, and so
Hmm.
I have to pretty carefully monitor my social media and discourse intake. And so an easy way of doing that is to like go read some older stuff and be reminded that like, no one liked Moby Dick when it came out, and it's okay to uh, not engage with what people are saying about the hot new discourse of the time.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think like part of I mean like this show has a number of utilities. One to entertain you all. Two, because like I like being able to talk to folks in the industry who I know or who I don't know. Uh, and then I think three is just it's good to be able to share the burden a little bit.
Yeah.
And also to like have a show where like that side of the like have a show where that touches on those things, but like where that element is like sandwiched between some more some more adamantine. I can't think of another word, but like some more eternal things. Some
Yeah,
less ephemeral subjects.
I like Kickstarter and RPGs and stuff got so big, um, starting in 2014 with the new D&D edition, but then also with the rise of like the new indie scene and Zine Month on Kickstarter. It's not called that. It's called Zine Quest. And it's been so exciting, but it's also been hard to see what used to be a lot of like hobbyists um, get pulled into worrying about their image or the industry. Um, and those are real worries, and we're all trying to make it under capitalism. And like, I know you've had Will Yobst on, and they are a full-time game dev, and I love their work. So I'm not trying to talk trash about people that do this as a job. I just miss it being a thing that I do for fun with my friends. And so, trying to get back to some of that.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Um, I think like I I think there's a lot of like meanness towards like quote unquote design influencers and like people who are like very focused on just like getting things out and having them like you know not playing games just making games sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Um, but I do also think like for me personally, it's really important that I'm like that part of the process of making games is playing them with my friends, and like having developing relationships with the people that I play with, and yeah, I I don't know what I would do without that, and so I think I very much like I I guess I hope that there's a way that one can try and do a little bit of both, and
Absolutely.
try and make things that are marketable, but also have nice home games, and and treat games as a hobby. But also I've seen I've seen life drained from people, so
Yeah,
you know
people get chewed up. It's rough out there. And I we'll get into this, I'm sure, with the
mhm.
two news items, and so we can move on from that for now
Yeah,
because I think
absolutely.
we're definitely going to come back to it.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of making games, are there any games that you're working on that you'd like to talk about?
yeah, I can do that. I just did some pre-orders for a print run of some of my most recent games.
Ooh.
The ones that have already arrived are the 4 books for a game called Speedrune, which is uh, a rules light ancient world fantasy is the phrase. I read RuneQuest, which is like one of the first RPGs post D&D, and really liked some of the vibes and really hated most of the rules. And it set me on a path of what if RuneQuest was good? And it has transformed from there. That is free, the PDF if you want to look at it. But I printed that and a bunch of adventure modules for it. Uh, I am printing After the Bomb, which is a Fallout inspired RPG that comes with uh, a map and a campaign set in Minneapolis, where I live. And then the last one that I'm sending to print is called Spice World, and it is what if Dune had a good RPG. I'm in my bootleg phase right now.
That rules.
Um,
That fucks.
very purposefully, just like my friends that play Sagas of the Icelanders want to play, just are getting into Dune now with the movies, and they're like, "Can we play the Dune RPG?" And I looked at it and I tried my very hardest to learn it, and it's not the kind of game I like to run. And so then I just all most of my RPG writing comes from a kind of spite where I see something
Hmm.
that I think is not as good as it should be, and I think I need to fix this, and then it turns into its own big thing. And so yeah, Spice World is the like next new one. The other ones are old, free on itch, but now in print. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know how to sell. Let's see. Spice World is 2d6. It's influenced by Traveler, which is one of the first big sci-fi RPGs. There's some PBTA adjacent stuff, and then it's just like Max is reading Dune now as well, and we're covering it on the Patreon side of our podcast. And so we talk a lot about like, oh, Frank Herbert wrote this character and said he's a genetic eunuch. I'm like, what the fuck does
What
that
did you
mean?
mean by that,
And
sir?
is there a way to like make it cool of like, oh, there's cool trans people in space doing drugs and having adventures? Like,
Fuck yeah.
what if Dune was fun?
What
Um,
if Doom was
and
fun?
so leaning into that and trying to make it modernized and more applicable to the lived experiences of me and my peers.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and like I think there's so much value in making an RPG because you see another RPG or you see a piece of media and you're like, I could do that, but awesome. Like,
Yeah.
what if this was good? Um,
Yeah,
there's a
and I mean
Fallout
that's
that
like,
lives within me that I will make
yes,
one day.
yeah, you should make it. Yeah, it's like also a fan fiction approach to RPGs, which I mean in a perfectly respectful way of like so much work of fan fiction from the early like zine culture in the 70s to now is like, oh wow, something in this media really speaks to me, but a bunch of it is fucked up. What if I made it good and did reparative work on this thing, not for the company, but for myself and the people who read this, who are mostly probably the same kind of people as I am who have the same problems with the main piece of culture. And so I like that kind of work. I respect it.
Yeah, ironically, my most recent game that I'm putting out, Biotraffication, came from being mad about a canon authority for fanfiction,
Oh, what?
because the Human Domestication Guide setting is great, and the person who initially made it is great, but is not very involved in the fandom, and the fandom was just uh like the canon authority put out all these rules that are like the aliens always win, the aliens are always right, or like they're like the things that they do, the humans are genuinely therapeutic. And I was like, no, those things should be the decision of the right individual writer. uh
Yeah.
and so I wrote a whole TTRPG. Well, first I wrote a TTRPG because I was really inspired by non-canon works that people have done, and then I got I was emboldened to make it worse, and I think it's good. I think making something like I think spite as a seed is really good.
I was just gonna say, yeah, like growing up, uh, you know, being socialized as a man, it's like I see a lot of examples of anger used really poorly. And so for a long time, I was like, I'll just never get angry, which is an unhealthy way to live. And so now it's like, how can I use my anger for good? And a lot of that gets angled into local politics here in Minneapolis. But then also, it's good to spitefully create a work of art sometimes. So,
Yeah, I really feel that, and I think like I think there's a I think there's a lot of value in like making a work that is instead of going to someone's inbox,
yes,
instead of
yes.
like quote tweeting someone or replying to someone, like making work that is in conversation with their work. It's maybe a little passive aggressive, but it is also like if you don't like the thing that they're doing, like you should just take your own road. Um, like
Yeah,
there,
and it contributes like the ecosystem of the hobby as well. And it brings other people into that conversation and it gives people more options of like what to read and engage with. So I think you're very right about that.
yeah, games are cool, and more people should make more games that are more different, and that's the thumbs up.
Yeah, disc tracks are back in a big way, and so start your disc track RPG today.
Doing some TTRPG diss tracks, writing 2 trillion word piece about I don't know. I can't even think of anything because I don't want to I don't want to be mean towards anyone's work. I can't think of anything.
System matters. You got to write your system matters manifesto.
Yeah, my what's the name of what's Eminem's actual name? Marshall Mathers. System Matters. There's something there. Um,
That's really good.
you can I can be mean towards yours. I don't want to be mean towards your books though, Ziggs. Yours are good. I like I like weird aliens and ghosts and such, and I think they should fuck each other. Um, uh, that's a big generalization of your work, but yeah. Um, and then are there any games that are coming up in the future that you're excited for? Any games that are that are on the horizon that you've seen stuff for?
The next one that I have on order is Daisy Chainsaw that I'm
Oh
excited to get
fuck
into.
yes! God, Charlotte's
Yeah,
Charlotte's so fucking good at this.
yeah,
Just like vibes wise.
yeah. Sure. One of the speedrun supplements has like 3 pieces by Charlotte, and it's one of the best financial decisions I've ever made.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's from Space Penguin Inc. Which you can get. I think just most board game stores should be able to order it too. And then, oh, what's that new Mothership module by Amanda P?
Hmm.
Uh, it's a one-word resonant, which is a cool mothership module by a cool designer that I am excited to get. Um, those are the big ones on my horizon. I don't buy a lot of games just because I work a retail job and don't have a ton of money.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm often like out of the loop on discourse stuff for my own mental health. So that I picked two. They're new. They're by people
Yeah, they're
younger than
good.
me.
um, I really like Mothership. I played a good amount of Mothership with Jess Levine recently. Um,
Oh, cool.
and it was fun. It turns out that I like I like to be a little scared. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to have like one of my big complaints for a while about Blades in the Dark was the like downward spiral, but it turns out I
Yeah.
actually really like that. I actually think it's really cool. Um, I think I just don't like it conceptually, but when I actually get to the table, I'm like, fuck me up, sister."
Yeah, Blades in the Dark can be stressful. I ran a few sessions and there was one pretty bad session where like everyone filled their stress meters and, got conked out.
Mhm.
Uh, and it was kind of a bummer, and the game kind of dissolved because of it. And it felt bad, but
I've never
I
had
don't
that
I don't
happen.
have
That's crazy.
yeah, it's not a TPK, right? It's not a party kill because everyone just but like when your stress meter fills out, you exit the scene and you're back later. Um, but it was not fun. So I think Mothership does it feels like it has less of that kind of like you said downward spiral.
Yeah, and I feel like the spiral is quicker. It's like if you have a really bad moment in a session, you might have one more session if that in you. Uh, while like if something like comes up, if the if the wheel isn't greased in Blades in the Dark and you're like you make a bad call, like you're not gonna realize it until like 7 sessions down the line. Uh,
Yeah, and then you're like heat's way filled up and the cops are on you. It's rough.
which is
Maybe it's
good.
because of the cops. Yeah.
Yeah, I personally like it's it's complicated. I like it in concept, but and like I think mostly I like Blades in the Dark.
Yeah.
I just think I think it really depends on who you're playing with and what happens. Also,
We
um,
did a Blades in the Dark episode of RTFM, and Max fucking hates that game. So if there are any fellow Blades haters out there that want to meet someone, hear someone talk about hating it. But yeah, I like it fine. I think you're right. Like, it depends on who I would play it with. But
yeah,
um,
that's real. Okay. Um, we're at about half an hour. I think that's a perfect time to uh God, it fucking sucks that like my language processing unit uh tells me to say let's get right into the news. However, I should not say that because that is something that a like fucking neo-Nazi says. That's Keemstar's thing. Um, so I will not say that, and I will instead say we're going to read and talk about the news. Um,
in today's current events, the second bird is coming. Look to the
the
skies,
second
everyone.
bird.
The second bird is coming,
Lakai,
bringing us.
it's my last hope. Cordus the bird, coming from uh the Pope, from the Sistine Chapel, from Rome. Wait, that's not where's the Sistine Chapel? Wait, is that?
I don't know. You got
Yeah,
me
okay, the
there.
Sistine Chapel's in the Vatican. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought I was right. Um, yeah. The Cordis is why the Pope has been talking about gay people being in in the Vatican. Uh, a reminder for people in chat: there are certain words you can't say in Twitch chat. But yeah, uh, what color was the smoke coming out of the Pope? Oh god, we're rhyming.
There's lots of wild stuff in the chat right now, and I really
Cordis has
like it.
learned a new word. The second.
Shout out to Catholics. for all the generational trauma they've inflicted.
Yeah,
Um,
they've done a lot. I'm gonna make the topic for the next DOVECOTE. One of the topics will be Catholicism. We'll just kind of go over the major points. Yeah, but our first story um is an unfortunate one, a somber one. Uh, Something that will make the work that I do here harder because I kind of I don't do my own reporting, right? Like I'm not as I talked about in the Lin episode last time. Like I don't consider myself doing like uh professional level journalism here. I am like talking to people and I am like talking about news that has been reported by other folks, but I'm not doing that reporting myself. Um, which is to say, the Dicebreaker seems to be going. Um,
it's on the way out. It's on life
yeah,
support.
Editor in chief and a variety of staff have been made redundant. This was on the 12th, and yeah, obviously, they were bought by the bought by IGN in May, and then this happened. Um, Definitely in line with some stuff that we talked about last week with Lynn, or that I talked about last week with Lynn, which is like, oh brother, TTRPG news as like a thing that might continue to exist is kind of on a down spiral. Unfortunately, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, like you said about like, oh, I'm not doing real journalism. It's because real journalism requires like a lot of skills and backing of,
Mhm.
some sort of money or power to get those stories. And the idea of Lynn breaking all those stories about the OGL stuff and everything, you don't get that news with IGN style pop-up filled uh cookie eating websites. Like, I don't know. I Pop culture sites in general are also bad, and
Yeah,
it's a bummer that that's what news looks like for a lot of people. And so another one bites the dust.
I do want to Board Game Wire. I do want to shout them out at least for having a pretty script light website. Like this is not too ad ridden,
Right, nothing
which I
popped up when you
appreciate.
loaded it, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Uh, so good on you. You did the bare minimum. uh,
You have a normal website.
you have a normal functional website. Yeah, I like so I guess an important background is that I went to school for journalism. Uh, and so like I if I were making enough money off this, I would probably be doing my own reporting. Um, but this is not really a thing that I do for money. Um, and I yeah, it's just it sucks. I think like in terms of like the utility of this sort of stuff, right? I feel like I want to make sure I'm like not just making a completely vacant argument for like why there should be TTRPG journalism. I think one, I mean, this might be somewhat cynical as a person who makes and sells games, but like it's pretty good for sales and pretty good for like crowdfunding numbers. And then I think too, like as you mentioned, like the OGL situation, there are these like huge companies in the space that would be, completely unaccountable, or at least partially unaccountable. Besides their like their fandoms, their fan bases, if not for folks like Lynn and what was at IO9 is now at Rascal. And even Dicebreaker was, I would say, towards the end of its lifespan. And this is a complicated thing to say because it just got it's getting shelved, but like a lot of what they did was just kind of repeating press releases,
Yeah.
which is the
But it's so hard to make it as any kind of news site if you're not doing press releases, doing listicles to maximize SEO. Like, you either do the good work and get punished for it because people, you're like exposing corruption and highlighting independent and marginalized creators or whatever, or you kind of have to sell out and try to draw in the Dungeons and Dragons crowd, which then creates this weird signal to noise ratio of like, well, we do cover indie stuff, we do try to do real news, but it's buried under three listicles about the new Modifius or Free League
Yeah.
game or whatever. And it's
Uh,
hard out there. And I mean, that's true for critical reviews for film, for fiction as
mhm.
well. It's just like anyone, there's no money in it anymore.
Video
And
games, you got
that
fucking
means,
tutorials.
yes, yeah. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it, it's like the VCs, right? It's the people that are like investing money in these companies to then close them and write them off to make money by, yeah, it's just like so deeply tied up in the worst practices of capitalism and investment culture and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
it it
just
it's
sad.
heartbreaking. Yeah, the good news is well, I mean, I don't know if that's good news. I think I probably mentioned. Have I mentioned this ever? I probably said this on a stream. It might have not even been a DOVECOTE. I think the ad money thing is a bubble. Uh,
I hope so.
I suspect it is. Like I can't imagine people are clicking through and actually buying products enough
Yeah.
to. But then that has a the problem with like I personally think ads are a bubble. Like I think advertising is a bubble in a lot of ways for like
Yeah.
really really big things, um, which means that like uh, I think especially online, but like that's a capitalism in general. I think is due for a couple crises of confidence. That might be bad for some people, but hopefully good for people who actually like things that are good. I don't know.
Right. And like the hope would be that like as these things crash, if they crash, the people that are doing actual work are left, or people see like, oh, this is what we should have been supporting the whole time. Um, Best case scenario, I guess that would be.
Yeah,
Which, your final note on this is like, go check out Rascal.
yeah. Hang on, let me get Rascal. Get on Rascal. Subscribe to Rascal. Uh, get on there. Get cooking. What do they have on their The Dead Queen's Raiment?
Yeah,
Cool. Check this shit
rascal.news.
out. Wait, how
Yeah,
do I?
it's, independently funded, reader funded um, RPG news.
Yeah, go look at that. You should. Um, God, it's so hot. I'm a little woozy today. So, yeah, viewers, you'll have to excuse me if I'm a little out of it. But yeah. I think that's all I really have to say about that one. Do you want to do the second story and then we'll take a little break?
Sure. Second story, I just voted the other day in the Crit Awards.
I still need to.
What does it stand for? Creative something in tabletop.
Creator
Um,
recognition in TTRPG.
yeah.
Um,
It's yeah, people nominated
look at this first though.
people for these awards a few months ago.
There's a whole
And
bunch.
now you can vote, and you just, I believe, just have to put in your email address. Like it's not even like, are you a game design person? It's just an open voting
Yeah, let me
thing.
actually get the ignore that tweet. We'll look at that later. That's old. We're sifting. 1 second. I'm just gonna go on their website. This is not gonna get us anywhere. Here we go. Vote for finalists. Round two. Give that a look.
Yeah, so I went in there and I was expecting to see, I've nominated people I know because I couldn't nominate people I don't know. That's
Mhm.
impossible. And so I was like, oh, I'm excited to go vote for these people that I nominated. And literally recognized like three people in the entire finalist list. and I felt like a Twilight Zone moment of like I thought I was keeping up on indie RPG stuff,
Hmm.
and I don't recognize like none of the indie TTRPG nominations. I didn't know any of them. So that felt weird.
Yeah, I feel similar. Uh I don't really know a lot of these people. I definitely knew a couple, um, but it's real. There's a whole other world I think that Crit especially touches on, which is like there is a like a lot of people making APs, like
Yeah,
a lot of different games.
it's actual play adjacent, and it feels sort of, and I haven't done the deep digging, so apologies if I'm misspeaking, but it feels sort of uh, influencer culture
Hmm.
adjacent. Um, and uh, that's just like not part of the hobby that I'm interested in. It sort of reminds me of like when you go to a craft fair and it's just like you can see that it's a bunch of clearly well-off white people like reselling a table that they sanded down and stained or whatever,
Hmm.
as opposed to someone who's actually like I'm getting too mean. I don't mean
No,
this
you're
that
allowed.
the people on this list are bad or in any way uh anything like that, but it's just like, and also like Sam Lee is a person on TikTok who I guess you would call an influencer, but does lots of cool games and shines spotlight on really cool independent games. And so I don't mean to say that all influencer work is bad either. It's just, people more and more say like, oh, Dungeons and Dragons now is sort of like a brand lifestyle. Like people don't get into it because they enjoy the game Dungeons and Dragons. They get into it because it becomes like consuming that those products becomes like a part of their personality. And uh, I think some of the AP stuff feels like that as well. Of just like, gotta get in there, you gotta meet the right people, you gotta be on the right shows, or I don't know. I'm talking shit. I'm sorry.
I I agree. Well, like I hmm. I think something that I noticed really quickly is that like this was something that was inaccessible to me.
Yes.
Uh, like these sort of spaces, sort of APs that like this highlights. Even I think this sort of games, like I think I was seeing some writing from Jeff Stormer about this that they're not sending any of their stuff into like audience vote and like self submission awards anymore, and it's because like ultimately what it becomes is a popularity contest,
Yeah.
and an audience contest, and it's not really no one no one's looking at your work and considering the quality of it. Um, and I think that's really true, and I think something that I also noticed with it for myself is like these are spaces where uh, if you are like a pretty queer person with like uh with like like glitter makeup and like that's your icon on Twitter or whatever, like that's how you get into these games. Uh, if you're a weird little autist who depicts herself as a demon, or like uh, even just someone who's not really comfortable like having their appearance be uh, out and uses like a some art that a friend made or a pic crew or or a picture of your pet. Like there are very specific aesthetics that are tied to
Yeah.
this, where it's like, here are 8 hot people. They're going to play Dungeons and Dragons for you. Are you excited? Um, and I think that's a world that I respect on some level because I think that there is good work that's being done there. Um, but I also I also like have seen personally in my efforts to like apply to things like that, to apply to those sorts of actual plays that you know there are some games that there are some tables that are just or like some AP tables that are just not made for people like me.
Yeah. In the old days, it was called TV ready, and like
Hmm.
on job applications for TV stuff, like they couldn't say you have to be hot. or you can't be ugly. And so instead they would say, you must be TV ready. And, as someone who isn't TV ready, uh, I get it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just like, it's not for me. And maybe my stuff is not for them. And that's fine. If the if the world weren't such a shit, it would be nice. Like, that's fine to have in the ecosystem, but with so little time and money to go around, it's then becomes a bummer that a lot of that time and attention is going to stuff like that instead of people doing what I consider more interesting work. But again, like, that's the same in fiction. My friend publishes novels. A company publishes his novels, like an old SF publisher that's still around. But they basically say, like, we're not going to do any PR for you.
Hmm.
You should consider doing PR for yourself so that you get paid, so you
That's
get uh,
crazy.
your checks and stuff. And it's just like, in the old days, they would be sending out flyers for books and stuff, and now they have fewer editors. There's less support for new authors, so it's not just our industry. Um,
Yeah.
but it's a bummer to see it in our industry. And I wanted to vote for my friends. I wanted to vote not just for my friends. I don't want to make it sound like a popularity thing. I also nominated a bunch of people who I don't know, but whose work I really enjoyed, like creators that I would like to get recognized in tabletop, and to then not be able to vote for any of them or even get their work in front of someone else's eyes via a nomination. Like, that's a bummer. I'm sad about that, I
Yeah.
guess.
I've been thinking a lot about like towards the end of the year doing some sort of like the Dovies type thing, and I've been thinking about like
Yeah.
what form do I want it to take. And I do actually like I think that I want it to have a very creator focused direction, and part of that is I might just ask specific people who have like been on the show to be like, hey, give me like 5 people who you think like
Oh, that's
5 works
cool.
or people or whatever that you think like should really be be like lauded, or even have people come on to do that themselves. I don't know. It's something that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, Christian of Meat Castle Gameware, an indie RPG creator, last year did the Meaties, which were his own awards that he
Mhm.
just released as like a black and white zine that you can download for free on his itch. And it was just like, here's my categories, here's why I'm doing this, like, read my little thing and then go buy these games that I liked. And maybe the solution to these weird awards is just to have 20 cool weirdos making their own version of that. So
Yeah, some more directed stuff for freaks.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that could be your award show title: direct stuff for
direct
freaks.
stuff for freaks. Yeah, it's good.
Good.
Um, and then there's kind of a secondary element to this, which like continues on. I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole with these fucking waffles maple syrup people. Um,
I don't know what that is. Yeah, I saw that in your notes. What is
so
waffles maple syrup?
they're a uh, Pathfinder AP group that I had never heard of until I first talked about them, because someone in their group was being like super fucking Zionist, and like openly so, and like very very like cruelly so towards other folks in the space, um and like kind of using that to gain power. I think it was a couple folks in the group, but one of the people who was in that group was nominated for one of these. I say was because it was redacted because of what we'll talk about in a second. Um, what you're seeing on the screen. um, but yeah, they just keep popping up in things. Is the thing. Like there was the thing about the Obojima uh, D&D 5e Ghibli-esque AP that was all white people, except for the one black person who was from Waffles Maple Syrup, who was one of the Zionists. So, uh, I'm tired. I don't want to. I don't want to know about them anymore.
Yeah,
Like, It's
But
exhausting.
so then I didn't see this part, but they put out this statement, and it's actually like I just was sort of talking shit about the crit awards, but this statement is super clear.
Mhm.
They're not waffle maple syruping around. It's just like you so rarely see such a straightforward statement, and so I do respect that. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna save this in case I ever fuck up. Like this is just a good like, hey, this stuff not allowed. Uh, we're not gonna try to couch it in any both sides are important kind of thing. It's just like none of this. You're out of here.
Yeah. I'll read it really quick. So it says, we at the Crit Awards want to be very clear in our stance and address an updated portion in our code of conduct for clarity. Individuals who identify as Zionists, promote Zionist material, or engage in activities that without a doubt support Zionism are not eligible for nomination. And then they redacted the award, which is really impressive, and I think this earned me, yeah, as you said, like I think a lot of respect for them. This is a very very like direct and clear way of dealing with this. I think it's great that they're peer driven. Like uh, I don't really agree with the way that they're structured because I don't like the like popularity contest thing, but I do think the fact that they're not like beholden to like a company or something gives them a lot of freedom, and I think that it's good that they are using that freedom to make a clear political statement about an ongoing genocide.
More of this.
More of this, please. Thank you. Um,
Maybe we can get them out of the awards business and into American politics.
yeah, get these
Better
guys
for
for Bernie.
everyone.
Maybe they can fix his
Uh,
shit. Yeah. Um, yeah. So that's all we have for news. How's about we take 5 and we'll be back with mail.
Great. I'm gonna refill my water.
Awesome. All right, we will be right.
Hydrate, everyone. It's hot out there.
Drink some fucking water. All right, we will be right back. Oh wait, there. Okay, we're good. Hello, we are back. As a reminder, please send your emails to darlingdemoneclipse@gmail.com. Uh, oh shit, something I forgot to mention. I'm not going to be rating out of this stream. I'm going to go off air for like a half a second, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to play Blade and Sorcery. So, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, send your emails there. We do have emails, however. We have questions. I'm I'm very scattered today. My apologies, everyone. Um, yeah, we have, as always, ever trustworthy, our good question asker, VIP, aka Skibbity Boppum Dada, aka Goblin, has sent us an embarrassment of questions. Five. As a fucking really good amount. So, hi Goblin. Uh, Goblin made
Do
some
we
really
need
good
to
fan art the other day.
do we need to summon the final bird?
We do actually. Thank you for reminding me. Um,
I'm a big fan of birds.
we gotta get that last bird in here. The last bird, Apocrypha, the male bird, uh, here and ready. Awesome. Okay. Uh, so our first question is: thoughts on status effects in TTRPGs? What's the best use you've seen of them? What is the worst? Hmm. Hmm.
I I don't think I'm a fan.
Hmm.
I was playing Monster of the Week once and rolled poorly, and the person running the game was like, "You lose your turn." I was
Oh.
like, "Well, there's no turns in this game," and they were like, "Well, it happens all the time in video games. It's like that. You roll poorly." And I was like, "Oh, I just like
Hmm.
that's kind of a weird thing, and not fun." And I think if you are playing like fiction first games, I don't even know what fiction first means anymore, but if you're playing something like Monster of the Week or Apocalypse World, uh, you can just say like, "Oh, your leg is hurt. You are slowed." It doesn't have to have a mechanical effect. It just, if everyone's on the same page and understands like, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to like run around or do a big kick," uh, that works better for me. Like I think so many status effects come from this over mechanization of games where it comes like from a low trust play style, right?
Hmm.
Like where I'm mad that the DM is gonna shoot me in the leg and then it's gonna do this thing, and so instead we look to the rules as a neutral arbitrator of what happens when I get shot in the leg. Uh, I just don't play with people I don't trust. So
Right.
maybe I will say status effects seem good if you're playing with strangers, and they seem boring if you're playing with people that are like you were saying, like fuck me up, like ruin my character. Like I don't want a list of slowed whatever whatever. I want to like describe what my character is not doing because you fucked me up so bad.
Yeah. I think for me it really depends on the game. Uh, I as like with Mothership, I really like the conditions. I think they make the game like they make the spiral work really well because you are more likely to fail as you fail. Um, but with like as you said, like I think with a fiction first game with a like PBTA, I don't want that shit. Get that shit out of there. I hate like the like hmm, maybe not hate. I'm coming in too hot on this. I don't enjoy the masks or glitter hearts style like you are upset or whatever, like you are angry. Because I feel like those are things that are going to be that are going to happen naturally, and I'd rather have conditions that are more interesting. Or I'd
Yeah.
rather have like more interesting representations of like my character's health and stress and stuff like that. Um, and then I think on a if we're talking about like a tactical game, like an OSR type situation, I think something that I want often with that is like um not to say that Mothership isn't OSR, but like I think Mothership is a very specific kind of like OSR where you are playing to lose. Um, and I think in an OSR where I'm playing to win, or in a tactical game that I'm playing to win, I really want stuff. I really want positive stats effects too. Like I want to feel like it's worthwhile having ownership over that mechanic, and like ticking things off every turn, because then some of those things might be helpful for me. Um,
Yeah.
I really don't like you lose a turn. I think you're so right, Lilith. Juice Cthulhu in chat is my friend Lilith. Um,
Yeah, and I think so often these statuses don't really matter. Like I'm a
mm,
big D&D 4th edition lover, and I think in that game there were always interesting tactical choices to make. And so if your ability to move was more limited, that's like a fun lever to turn to pull on then, because then you're like, can I get a movement buff off this other person? Can you knock that person closer to me instead of me having to go closer to them? Like it invites engaging with the mechanics in a really fun way, but that's because of the framework of that game,
mhm.
not because the status effects themselves are cool. Uh, Also, I just want more weird ones. Like I want to be a toad or whatever. Like I don't want to
Yeah,
be turned to stone. I don't want to be slowed. I don't want to be exhausted. I want to be like crying milk, or just like make them strange, make them more fun to engage with maybe.
yeah. I really like. Speaking of Lilith, who's in the chat, in her game, her work in progress game, Euphoria 2180. There are blood traits, which are uh, like weird little qualities that your blood can have. Um, and they have like different things they do depending on the context. So like uh if you somehow get like acidic blood, you have like a passive thing where if you're like bleeding, you deal damage to like enemies around you. On attacking with uh your blood has armor piercing too. um and then if you cook your blood into food, or if you cook food that like uses an ingredient that has your blood traits, you give people who eat it the acidic spit natural weapon. So like really
Yeah,
versatile
this is rad. Yeah.
status or trait like that creates a an avalanche of additional traits, which I think is really great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and also like some of these are really freaky. There's like psychoactive. There's aphrodisiac, fire blood. um,
That's
Arc
good.
blood, your blood is
That's
electricity, or a
that,
superconductor.
it's good blood, as we say
It's
on the show. That's
it's
good blood.
that's good blood. Yeah. Um. Oh, this is a great question for you. I don't know if Goblin knew that. I don't know if Goblin knows much about you, but I think you might have an answer to this. Uh, do you know of a compendium or blog that compiles older TTRPGs before 2000-ish? I've recently been fascinated with early works, but it's hard to find obscure ones having not lived around that time.
Um, Wikipedia is often surprisingly good.
Hmm.
I know that's a boring answer, um, but for a lot of games, there will just be like, here's this list of full publications from this publisher. Um, I mean, I think it's hard. Yeah, like, do you want to find good ones? Do you
Right.
want to find um, like strange ones? And I think the thing about, especially if you're getting back into the 70s, is that a lot of that work has been effectively lost. Someone mentioned RPG Geek in the chat. I am unfortunately an RPG Geek hater. Um,
Hmm.
but I will. I think the site is getting better, um, and so uh, it's uh, it's like Board Game Geek. It's like as much created to be a social site, I think, which turns me off. It's like less. If I look at a list, I'm looking at a list and I'm making my own choices. But a lot of these social sites are like they have ratings involved or they have all this other stuff, and that makes it less appealing to me personally. Um, John Peterson is doing some really interesting work, mostly focused on Dungeons and Dragons, unfortunately, but has uncovered some really cool stuff like uh, the game of Dungeon or Minneapolis Dungeon, which was basically some kids heard about Dungeons and Dragons and then made their own version of it.
Huh.
Uh, and he like found the creator who still had like a mimeographed Xeroxed copy of these rules from 1974 or whatever. So that older stuff is hard to find and less well chronicled. 80s, 90s into the 2000s, a lot of that is right on Wikipedia, and a lot of the publishers also have their own subreddits, which is weirdly Reddit has become one of the only useful sources of information these days if you're like
Yeah.
trying to do something on your own.
Reddit.
Uh, yeah, I mean Reddit sucks, but also at least people will give you a real answer to your problem instead of AI generated garbage. Also, you can join the RTFM Discord server, and there are a lot of
Yeah.
knowledgeable people there who are happy to find sources for old games and stuff. I don't know a single compendium of old RPGs, but yeah, I do a lot. That's part of the appeal to me of RPGs is that it's less like chronicled. There are unknown areas, there are forgotten gems still, um, and like fun work to do of just like digging at used bookstores. Yeah, I wish I had a cool bullet of an answer that was like, just go here. It'll
That's
show you
great.
everything you need. But or come to
Uh,
my house. I have lots of interesting old RPGs. Don't actually come to my house. That's weird.
don't come to Aaron's house,
Um,
please. I'm begging you. I know we've plastered the address everywhere, but
right.
uh, yeah. A great answer. Not one that I could have given. Yeah, do all that.
And then I will say too, like if you want to buy old RPGs, Noble Knight is a website that sells used games. The prices are really atrocious, way too high. But
Hmm.
if you just want to like find a title of a game, they will probably have it as well as maybe a picture or some description. So that's if you're like doing some research or trying to find a cool niche thing, poking around their website can at least give you a title to search, or might they might list the designer or something like that. And so don't shop there. Well, I shouldn't. They have some fine deals, but also they are like selling to collectors, so it's a weird
Hmm.
thing. RPGs got so expensive during the start of lockdown, just like lots of other hobbies, and that makes me sad because I want to buy cheap RPGs.
Let let Aaron have them for free, please. Smiles.
I'll pay for them. I just don't want to pay $90. They Noble Knight has. Let me see if I can look this up. Uh, has my first Kickstarter thing, which I don't even have.
Oh,
Um, and it's listed for $84 because it's technically out of print. And that makes me so mad.
that's
So
wild.
yeah, yeah.
You
Uh,
should some there's no reason to do this, but you should send them so many copies of it. Just
I
make it
don't
worth
have any
one
more. I
cent.
don't want to. It's like when I was fully D&D brained, so I don't even want it to be out there. But
Yeah, that's fair.
they are based not far from me, and so I always joke with my game store boss that we're gonna go heist them and steal all their stuff and then sell it for normal prices. So if you hear about that crime, pretend I didn't say any of that.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Um. Next question from Goblin. What do you find the most enjoyable amount of lore or world building for TTRPG is out of the box? Do you mean, Goblin, if you're here, do you mean, uh, like the game itself has its own world, or do you mean like when you're starting a campaign, how much knowledge do you want to know of the setting, uh, in advance? Uh, we'll I think we'll go to the next question, and then we'll come back to that one once I get an answer from Coplin, because I feel like that's an important. Oh, sorry, the game itself. Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about this?
I this is again, you have activated me. I'm the Manchurian candidate right now, and this is one of my phrases. I am like a lore hater in the same way that we were talking about hating certain games earlier, because I just want it to be better.
Hmm.
Um, we read 13th Age for RTFM, which is like a D20 fantasy RPG by the people that did third and fourth edition, like two designers from D&D did this one, and it's like their streamlined semi-narrative D20 fantasy. Uh, and for once, I actually liked the lore because it's just like 13 pages, clearly laid out, and all of it's like something that you can engage with. Like you can drop it in front of the players to start an adventure, or give them a hook or something. And so I think the answer for me is variable because so much of it is so poorly written, like a bad encyclopedia entry. So if it's well written, I'll read more of it. If it's immediately usable, I will read more of it. Like I don't need to know about some wizard king that died 10,000 years ago unless he's a zombie in the sewers that can attack my players.
Hmm.
Then tell me about it. But otherwise, don't tell me about that stuff. Um, yeah, I it's hard because I also really like I'm like a failed fiction writer, and so I do like to try to write something like evocative as far as world building goes. So to say I hate lore and then to try to write a bunch sounds hypocritical, but I don't know. That's me. How about you?
I actually really agree, and I think like a starting point for me is like because I make the games that I want to exist. And so
Yeah.
like I get so bored reading like World of Darkness stuff where it's just like
Yes.
um the first vampire lord was named Skrethlaxles and he's dead. Um a big rule, like a big kind of unspoken rule in Sapphic World, which I'm honestly just realizing now, but it's something that I've done, is that every NPC that every character that's mentioned in the book is an NPC that you can interact with and is either alive or has an interesting way in which they are dead. Um, and I think that's really important. I think it's important. I think as Lilith saying in chat, like interactability, mechanical relevance, like I think those are really important things. I don't write anything just for like shits and giggles. Um, I want it to be stuff that like players can touch on, which yeah, I very much agree with you on that. Yeah. Um. So, oh, I think this is a similar topic. Let me just try and read this so I can understand it before I say it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Have you had trouble with making a setting for a TTRPG fluid, as in making it so that the PCs could change and interact with the world? If so, how have you remedied that conundrum? Hmm.
You want to go first?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think like I think just not being too precious about it is really important. I think being okay with like truly devastating shit happening to the setting is really crucial. And like enabling that and making that like part of play. Um, and yeah, like not trying to write a novel, like letting your players actually do stuff and have an impact. If that's the sort of setting that if that's the story you're telling, if you're playing something very noble, I think that's good.
I'm super lazy, so I just always plan the minimal amount,
Hmm.
which means that it's pretty easy to pivot because I only just like I just like write down three assholes and then introduce them to the players and be like, what are you gonna do about these assholes? Uh, and then we go from there, which means I don't have you know how sometimes the DM will be like, here's this super cool thing. I'm going to tell you about it and you can interact with it. And there's all this cool stuff about it. And it's like a nice set piece. I
Hmm.
can't do that. I respect it. It feels fun in the moment, but I like the stories, the games I run kind of builds. Like it's not until session 3 or 4 that things kind of pop off because I'm reacting to the players and like letting these things accrete. And if they don't care about one of the assholes I introduced, like that person can leave and we'll focus on the other two. And then, it's just like I like in OSR terms, it's always just like just plan one village and the dungeon, the first 3 rooms, the dungeon near it, and then go from there. And I think the older and sleepier I get, the more I am just like, yeah, it's just one. I just want to plan one problem, and
Right.
if they solve it, we can go from there. So I just, yeah, just too tired, too old for that shit.
I feel similarly. I see so many stories where it's like funny story number 365 trillion of like D&D game that got ruined by the players deciding that they liked Splurmfo the talking monkey more than anything in my campaign. And it's like, no, buddy, you've not been cursed or ruined, you've been gifted. Splurmfo the monkey is your campaign. And
They
you
will
can
now
make
do
so
anything for
much.
that monkey.
You gotta build on that monkey. Like, you don't need to stop dragging them, whatever bullshit. Fuck the Lich King. Like, Splurmfo, like, they gotta go to the Monkey Kingdom.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
uh,
Get this monkey a banana stat.
yeah, get this monkey a banana, get this monkey, like, a backstory, like a wife and kids,
Yeah,
maybe a husband and
and it's
kids.
if you help the monkey, you get monkey blood, which you can use for various purposes as a
Yeah.
status effect, or
for
banana blood, maybe.
banana blood for spells, and yeah. God.
Um, I guess so. In the chat, I guess I was worried about accidentally writing a war game setting where it seems impossible for things to meaningfully change.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think uh I think that's a different thing because like I think with some games it's like you want to make that really clear like that you want that. Like I guess it's up to what you want as the designer. You can put things in your book where like you say this game is not made for X, Y, and Z. Like I think that is a very
Right.
valid approach.
This
Um
is not a game about overthrowing the Lich King. It's about fun skirmishes against the Lich King's skeletons or whatever. Yeah, I think, yeah, what you said about like you can just tell readers and players, don't worry about that thing. Or if you want to worry about that thing, that's fine, but you have to do that work. I, as the
mhm.
game designer, I'm not designing that game. I'm doing this. Here's how I think you can have the most fun with these rules.
Yeah. I think a lot about Seven Part Pact, which we've been playing on here on the channel every month, which is like a really great wizard game where you're all each of you are 7 different wizards and you all have your own situations and like powers and domains. And you suck and you're awful and like any effort that you make to make things better is only going to make them worse because like ultimately the world is going to keep pushing against you and you you only have a hammer and so all the world is nails. And I think like Jay in writing that has been very clear that like this is what this game does. Like you're not going to save the world. You're not going to create a perfect order of wizards that will make everyone happy. You're gonna fuck up. Things are gonna crash and burn, or you are going to like change so dramatically that like you don't recognize yourselves. And uh, I think that's good. I think sometimes you can just say don't do that, or you can do this, but maybe play a different game or change my game, change the way that you're playing my game. Yeah. Uh, Next up is still from Goblin. Multi-user dungeons, also known as MUDs, are an incredibly interesting form of roleplay, similar to play-by-post, virtual tabletops, and MMOs. Do you think MUDs are an underexplored part of the medium? How do you think this could be changed to fit RPG TTRPGs? I know so little about mods, unfortunately. I don't know if you know
Um,
any.
yeah, I'm 40, so I know about MUDs.
Right.
Uh, I have been joking about wanting to do some sort of like oral history project, collecting views from people who did online role playing, but not like we're playing D&D on a forum. Stuff like MUDs or doing role play in like a World of Warcraft or other MMO server, or one of my friends used to do like Neopets forum role play. Uh, I think there's just like so many lineages of design and play that would be really healthy and fun to bring into modern senses of RPGs that are just kind of forgotten. Either because they weren't cataloged very well, like, MUDs. Some of them still exist. Like you can quote unquote go into the dungeon, but the people aren't there anymore, and like dead MMOs, that stuff is not really documented very well, or because of stuff like the Neopet forums and fan fiction stuff, like those kinds of role plays are ignored because it's like young people or uh, mostly women, and so it's just like this isn't real. We can ignore it. It's not real role playing. Um, so yes, I would love to read a book about MUDs. I think they're kind of direct descendants of MMOs, like because you know a multi-user dungeon is Ultima Online or whatever, or EverQuest, like pre-WoW
Mhm.
MMOs. Uh, there's gotta be someone has to have written a fun book about MUDs, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think just in general, like if you hear about stuff like that, or if you used to role play in forums, bring that up, tell people about it. Keep the old ways alive, um, because you never know when it will become useful or fun to bring into tabletop.
Yeah. I'm doing some writing for one of my friend Duck's games, Isle of Dr. Moreau, which is a uh, TTRPG based on a Gaia Online form roleplay of a like transformation based Isle of Dr. Moreau riff story.
Well, yeah.
I also wrote Destroyed Valley, which is a like metaphorical. It's both a setting guide and a metaphorical archive of like uh Roblox Kingdom Life 2 experiences of role playing in that. Um, I also played so much Starbound RP. I was a big like play by post person, which is why like a lot of my work has been uh made to work in that structure because I think it's a really cool. I think it's a really cool structure. Um,
Yeah, underserved right now. I mean, maybe that's
mm,
yeah, maybe that's where we focus, is like there are so many people that, especially with ongoing COVID stuff, like maybe can't hang out with other people in person. And so maybe some of this stuff we can bring to structured text-based or talk-based roleplay experiences. And yeah, for that reason alone, it seems really useful for accessibility and stuff. So
yeah. Um, okay, we have about a half an hour left. Please, there are no more emails in my inbox. Please send emails to darlinggamingclubs@gmail.com, or frankly, we have a chat right here. Send questions in the Twitch. And we will answer them hot off the presses. um, we can also hang out and shoot the shit and talk about anything. I don't know. Are there any subjects that you feel like you want to go back to or talk about or introduce, Aaron?
I tabled. So Minneapolis has a pretty healthy zine scene. Uh, we have like different volunteer run record and bookstores that sell zines. And yesterday I was at a zine fest that was in the park by my house, just like an outdoor, no entry fee, bring a table or blanket. Um, and it was super fun. and I just like that's the culture and the vibe that I want RPGs to have more of.
Hmm.
And so I just like want to spread the good news and say like it was super rad. There were all sorts of people selling like their comic books or stuff about local politics or mutual aid things or like here's my weird sex collage zine and um it just seems so nice and healthy to meet people that way of just like here's my weird little shit. I'm not trying to get famous for it. I just want you to have it and read it because you are in the same general area as I am.
Yeah.
Um,
Look at my little
so if
sketch
you are,
beasts.
yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, if your city has a zine fest, I would suggest attending it. It's like so often they are more accessible than a lot of bigger, game festivals or whatever. A lot of them require masks or proof of vaccination and supply masks and stuff, and have other accessibility needs. A lot of them I've gone to have like rules about like, hey, don't wear scents and don't like be loud. Here's a quiet room for people if you're getting overstimulated. Just trying really hard to make it accessible for as many people as possible. And like, as much as I was talking shit about crit awards and stuff, I just want to say like there are people out there doing really cool work that are trying to build community and stuff. And I try to go to those things. I try to support that, and I bet there's one near you as well.
Yeah. Um, this is a shot in the dark. Have you ever heard of the dead god of war?
No.
Okay, so the dead god of war was a very like I think 1 year long Twitter account, um, which was a person who wore a white oni mask and a black cloak and went to various like comic cons and other places, and wrote these like really incredible zines that like were collaborative and like personal and strange and and sexual and dark, um, and they held a little sign up that just said "vor" wherever they went, which is really funny. Um, and then like there was kind of this slow development that you could see happening, which was like the person underneath all of this was becoming was transitioning like visibly. Like you could see them in different clothing, and you could see them uh, like with longer hair. And then eventually, like the reason why this ended at the end of the year was like eventually they were like, "Hey, Vor died. Like, this is the dead god Vor. Vor is dead." And they made this like beautiful zine, which I think I actually have art in, under my old bird allergies persona. Um, uh, and it was great, and it was temporary, and it never made a buck, and it's like uh I I hope once things are stable for me, I can like make something that is as beautiful and mysterious as that, because it really I think about it a lot. I think it was a really incredible piece of art, and very, very spiritual too. Like this was not just a person doing art for art's sake. This was like a person who very much was inhabiting this character, and then like when when they realized the character was dead and then it was over, like I think they had a lot of sadness, and it was fascinating.
That's great. Um, yeah, one of my favorite comics is called Rudy, by Mark Connery, and Mark Connery just like lives in Toronto and leaves little mini comics in coffee shops or whatever. And
Uh,
someone like he is well known, but he's not famous, if that makes sense. He's like known in Toronto art circles or whatever. And someone did finally like put together a collected edition, but it was this case of like Mark Connery wasn't keeping an archive of the Rudy comics. It was like,
yeah,
Mark, send me what you have. Toronto people, if you have any of them, like send them to me. And there's this like active curation with the editor and stuff. But yeah, like just doing that art for the moment for the people around you, as kind of an act of ritual or resistance or just like because you need to do it is really special. And I don't know that we get as much exposure to that as we used to. And I don't mean to be like kids these days or anything like that, but I just mean, the omnipresence of the internet means that people don't learn to do that and don't learn that they're allowed to do that. So yeah, like make your weird shit and for the people around you, and it feels good.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like I've talked with a lot of folks, and I think this is especially a thing that I found with like a lot of trans creators, which is like uh because I think so often we have to like fight and grind to have our things be seen. There is like this fantasy of, hey, what if something that I made was just found? Like,
Yeah.
what if something I made was unearthed? And I think that's like really, really compelling. And it's something that I want, and I want to be in a place where I can see that, and I can make something that's made to be found.
Yeah, and if anyone is like out there listening and needs help figuring out how to print stuff or anything like that, I'll always try to answer those questions. It's passed down from zinester to zinester of like, well, get ready to print. You're gonna fuck up the first 10 copies. Like, it's just a kind of ritual that we all go through of finding someone to help us learn to do those things. And yeah, I mean, it's easier than ever, I think. My libraries in Minneapolis, at least, like you get a certain amount of free printing every week. So I will often just print off, like I've laid out a bunch of one-page zines that I just fold into 4 pages. And I just trudge to the library once a week and print them out and leave them in little free libraries or hand them out. It has like my website and stuff on there. And it just, I think, is a more meaningful way of reaching out to people and saying, like, I don't know, check out my website, find me on Twitter. Twitter
Yeah,
sucks.
that
Let's
sucks.
escape. Back to paper.
We got to get out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not seeing any additional questions, so I think we'll wrap up a little early. Is there anything else you want to direct folks towards before we wrap up? Any plugs?
No, I'm good. My itch page is up there. You can listen to RTFM. Uh, that's all. That's all I do. I'm trying to lay low.
God bless.
But thank you. Thank you for having me. This is
Yeah,
good. I love the background. I love the birds.
thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It was really a pleasure and honor to have you on. And yeah, I think what's gonna happen is I'm gonna hit. I guess I'll hit the like. How do I want to do this? I'm not gonna hit end stream. I'm gonna hit BRB. Uh, and then you're gonna see that for a little while, and then the stream is gonna go down for like 5 seconds while I do a switch so that the VOD gets swapperooed, and then I'll be back after I've yeah. Okay. So I will see you all soon. Yeah. Bye, people who are watching just this. Take care.